The most super intelligent power source and force of love and creation is my shepherd. I shall not want. It maketh me to lie down in green pastures. It leadeth me beside the still waters. It restoreth my soul. It leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for its name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for the most super intelligent power, source, and force of love and creation is with me. Its rod and its staff, they comfort me. It prepareth a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. It anointeth my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of what I am forever. What's happening? Benton's still here at the truck stop, broke down. It's Monday. And remember, I'm an hour ahead of Central Time, where at some point today, supposedly, a tractor, a Class 8 heavy-duty tractor will be towed from Chicago to middle of nowhere, Virginia on I-81 and swapped out. Now, how that works, I'm not really sure. That'll be interesting to see the process of what all's involved in hooking up, because I won't be able to get to, I won't be able to put the new truck, you know, I'm not able to hook it up to my trailer until they, you know, move, I guess I could just move it out of the way. The truck I'm speaking to you from, I guess they could move it out of the way and then deal with it. The proverbial hurry up and wait, I'm certain at the moment that the moment this guy, even before whoever this is shows up, the company's going to want me to be ready to just throw my belongings into the new tractor and lickety-split, hit the road, Jack, right? Which is kind of funny. It's like, yeah, I've been waiting around for 2+ days. What's the hurry, sir? What's the hurry? But that's what it will be. And people, remember, these are normie NPCs that live in houses. They have no concept of, oh, you don't want to go to a hotel? Well, yeah, the hotel's fine if I can have my truck right outside the hotel room, and then every time I realize I need something that's in the truck, I can walk out there and get it. Sure. I need my things, sir. I need my things. I don't believe they have any concept of this. Just, oh, pack a bag. Yeah, let me pack a bag and then just live out of the truck stop. That's a great idea. Just go in there and buy whatever I need. And I've thought about that. That's probably the way to do truck driving, actually. But then what does that lead to? Obesity, heart attacks, you know, poor health, right? And just forget about the heart attacks and the obesity. You know, I feel pretty fucking fantastic most of the time. Now, the healing, you know, the act of healing, you know, there's symptoms and challenges with that. But overall, I feel pretty fucking good, especially for my age, right? 50, the big 50. The light won't come on. I guess the truck has decided that based on however many volts are left, however much power is left in the battery. So at what point does this light stop working? I don't know. We'll find out. Maybe it'll get us to daylight today. There's a channel I listen to called Tragic Reality. I don't know if anybody has ever seen this in their feed, but I think I've put a few, shared a few on my posts tab, probably, most likely. But I wouldn't say I'm a fan, but it's a fella in his 20s who, you know, talks about some of the same similar type of ideas over here, but not in the same way, certainly. And he's been doing live streams and maybe probably for the financial, I know there's some financial incentives to the vertical streaming in particular. I think YouTube's actually had a program to pay like $1,000 just to give content creators $1,000 to do vertical live streams. That's what I heard anyway. But I saw he had a post this morning where he's not planning on doing any more live streams because I guess he thinks he has to stand there and read the chat and respond to people's questions. They're annoying questions from the chat, right? And most of them are annoying, right? But I get it. And he has, thousands of subscribers and gets thousands of views on his prepared videos. So, why wouldn't he just keep doing what he's doing anyway? But yeah, you might not be able to get that $1,000 bonus there, Bubba. But I feel you, partner. I have some notes. Trust that you're well, listeners and replay crew. I'll do my best to remember to make the streams public. Sometimes I forget, and then it's like, well, I mean, was that even worth making public now that it's been long enough? StreamYard defaults to making the streams public. And now, when I went to T-Mobile, I did not have this problem. So I started out on Verizon under US Mobile. And then I noticed that I could live stream hotspotted to a second phone and not run down my battery on my main phone quite as much. And it wouldn't count much of that data towards my hotspot, which is I get 50 gig a month. And then, so I went from Verizon to T-Mobile, and it's same thing. It wasn't counting very much of my hotspot. And then now that I'm back on Verizon, and maybe they've made changes to the network in the intervening time, but now it counts all of that data. So in less than half the month, I came fairly close to hitting the 50 gigs. So I'm on my main phone right now. Not that it really matters, but I'm toying with the idea of getting a second, paying for a second annual service. So we'll see. I don't know. Haven't been able to pull the trigger. But then, I'm going to have to get another phone, which I'll probably just buy this phone again. It's down to like $150. I recommend nothing, but these higher priced phones just don't seem like they're worth it to me. So yeah, one of these Motorola Moto G Powers or whatever for $150. What I like about the Motorola's though, they're hard to kill, man. They're hard to kill. I have one for years, and I finally did. It was the case's fault, and I almost bought a new case for it, but this old-ass phone on Android 11, it finally cracked. I dropped it for the bazillionth time, and it cracked on the corner, but the case had basically just started to disintegrate at a certain point. I almost bought a new case for it. That might have saved it, but who knows? Who cares? Does it even matter? Maybe one day old Benton will evolve or, raise his consciousness beyond cell phones or smartphones. We'll see. Probably not. It could happen, though. And I have some notes here. And even though I'm like 13 miles from a supercenter, this shows you the way of the so-called world, the vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions. With the Walmart app, I was able to have groceries delivered. Well, I tried to get some thermal underwear, and either the lady couldn't find them, which she seemed like she was on top of stuff pretty good. An immigrant, most likely, who knows what her status is? I have no idea, but her English, she did not have a lot of English, right? Maybe like Dominican, somewhere in there, Haitian, Dominican. I don't care. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. It really doesn't. What's up, Miss Snow? Before I get going on the Walmart delivery, because that's always there since Miss Snow's here, I popped in for a few minutes and listened to Landry's panel, and I hope this isn't taken as a criticism of anybody in particular, because it's not meant that way. But you know, and this probably speaks to my own, you know, neurodivergence. Let's heavy air quotes, right? Heavy air quotes on the neurodivergence. But, you know, really we're talking about a defective, just somebody with a defective personality. So I take a lot of this onto myself. But I'm just confused as to the panel phenomenon. And I find the whole thing confusing as somebody who chose to participate in it daily for long periods of time. You know, is this some version of like the, whatever they call that counts, you know, like the council from the Star Wars movies, you know, at some point there's some fucking enlightened, you know, there's a name for this. I can't think of what it is, but, you know, there's like 9 people or whatever that just sort of run the government, you know. Is it some version of that? Like is it those sort of dynamics playing out? It's like, you know, first Joe Cool kind of weighs in on the personality politics and sort of gives his endorsement, and then, you know, you got Flow State kind of putting his 2 cents in, and then some newer person, which it doesn't matter that it just means I'm not familiar with them. Some newer person is, from my perspective, and I understand that doesn't mean anything. And again, who these people are is not really important. It's, I won't say confusing. There's something there that I don't have the wiring for. It's this whole thing with people and dogs. I watch somebody in the park or whatever, and they got a dog on the leash, and they're watching the poop come out of the dog's butt. And then all I can think as a neurodivergent person is, what if I was into dogs and at some point I'm in a park in a city and somebody's watching me watch poop come out of a dog's butt? And all I can think is, there's a human being with an animal on a leash and they're watching the poop come out of its butt. I can't get beyond that. It's like, what is this? You know? Confusion. Same thing with the panels. I mean, and that is a pretty apt analogy. It's like, we're watching poop come out of the butt. Like, where's the, you know, how's that so great? Oh, am I? No, I didn't. Snow says I'm actually in Landry's intro. Well, that's cool. I'm assuming. And I would say about that, you know, I'm getting so old. You know, I'm settling into my boomerific, you know, era or whatever. Like one time I called in and it was the outro of the show, and he was like, "Yeah, man, I'm tired. I'm trying to wrap up." I said, "Oh, I didn't even know that was the outro. Like, I couldn't even tell. You know, roll the motherfucking credits, Jack. I don't even know what's going on." So, you know, I guess I'll go back and listen to it, but I'm not even sure I would understand that that's the fucking intro, right? Isn't that crazy? So, you know, it reminds me to sort of try to be a little more patient with people like my father, you know, who's 20 years older than I am. You know, based on my own ability to figure out what the fuck's going on, maybe I could be a little more patient with others, right? Moose made it. Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad I'm in there. I guess. I mean, who knows? A new wave of energy coming into the panelverse. Less unhealthy, Snow. Let me. It's more healthy. Well, see, I don't want to imply. Let's not imply that whatever was going on before was healthy. And I'll include myself in that. But yeah. Anyway, I know what you mean. I have to reframe it for my own way of thinking, or I'll get confused and lost. You know, lost in my own sauce, right? But yeah, good, great. And that's kind of what I mean with the Star Wars, you know, high council or whatever analogy is. Like in the past, it definitely wouldn't have been confused for that. Instead of just yelling at everybody all the time. Although, you know, sometimes a heated discussion is really the only thing that's going to get to the heart of the matter. But then, you know, back to the hill of beans, and this is all entertainment. Like, to what end, right? But then, hey, Benton, you come on here and talk for 2 hours. Like, to what end? Exactly. Clearly, there's something going on within Benton where, you know, some needs are served, you know. And, yeah, it's justifiable based on the material, certainly. And, you know, I'm thinking back to a lot of the books I read, many, many, many years ago now. And, some of my own spiritual discourses are born out of materials that I took in, 10 years ago. And then over time sort of forgot the parts that don't actually pertain or that maybe were in error. And I've integrated and taken in the parts that are valid or pertaining to what I've got going on internally. I feel like this is kind of the same thing, that there will be at least a few individuals with a certain receptivity and a certain, who have tilled the soil of their internal space enough that those seeds will, something will grow out of them in the future, right? Which is not my function. That's actually their function. But if I'm able to assist, what I am always wants to be helpful, because that's the nature of what I am. It wants to be helpful. Yeah, easy to get lost in the loop. Yeah. Yeah. And my thing is, like, what I liked about panels was I enjoy discipline. I enjoy self-discipline. So there would be times when I would want to, I would hear something I wanted to respond to, but then I would look and see, well, it's probably a little too close to my bedtime. Do I trust myself? Because if I get my energy up too high, then I know it's going to be hard to get sleep, right? And when I was doing the daily streams, that was and I don't think folks realize this, but to do that level of streaming and to put that much of oneself, at least from my perspective, into a creative process, it was a 24-hour day thing. It was 24 hours if you looked at the time I had to sleep. I had to, go shopping to have the proper foods for my mind to work and, my various systems to work. And then, the time to be thoughtful and to think things through and to sort of decompress. And it was a 24-hour day endeavor, right? And I was very disciplined. I was going to bed real early because I was still pretty fucking sick back then. So I think I was going to sleep by like 4 o'clock. So 2 o'clock rolled around, I turned my computer off, whether I wanted to or not. Now I might still keep listening on my phone or whatever, but it was like, oh, it's 2 p.m. Shut this motherfucker down. Like, we're done. And sometimes I might hear something I wanted to respond to, and it's just like, nope, you're gonna have to turn it off, buddy. We can't go there right now. It ain't for us. We'll get them at midnight when they're still up all night, and I just woke up. We'll get them with the old cranky old man energy. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I had a lot of fun though. It was interesting. I learned a lot from all of that, certainly. It's about me, from my perspective. It's always about me, and that's the way this is supposed to work anyway, right? It's the way it's supposed to work. But anyway, glad you popped in, because I did have some thoughts on that I probably wouldn't have been able to get through. So, yeah. And I haven't quite figured old Landry out, not that I really need to. I think it says a lot about the youth, right, that I'm listening to. There's multiple content creators I've found in their 20s. And, I'm really annoyed at times with the boomers and the old fogies, my age and older, who want to have a go at the younger generation, because I remember being the younger generation and all, very similar criticisms were being levied our way. So I'm just going to assume that, especially my parents, my parents graduated high school in like 73. So that's really, that's what people think of the 60s movement. It spilled over into the 70s. My dad with long hair playing in a rock band or whatever. I'm pretty sure that the old fogies back then had similar views of the youth, right? But then the youth eventually goes and does what? Serves corporations and, and that ties us into some of the notes I have here. These normie NPCs, they want to be tax-paying citizens. Like, that's what they want to be. They want to, and I'm not saying they should or they shouldn't. I understand why, but they want to do these things. They want to, and that makes me think of a song lyric from Sunny Day Real Estate. Sign your name at the bottom of the government, because when I look spiritually and mind, body, and spirit, and at the level of to give a performance as a personality in this realm. Do I want to be held responsible for what the government represents? No, absolutely not. And so, you know, again, back to the Christ story, and none of this is, I'm not calling anybody bad, right? Like, I'm also participating, you know, my whole life in these systems, and then over time it's been less and less and less. But so I'm not calling anybody out. There's no guilt, there's no shame, there's no ridicule. Oh, well, you know, you're a fucking taxpayer or whatever. I mean, you know, pretty much everybody is on some level, right? Where's my coffee? And that's just, even if we're just talking sales tax or gasoline, right? It's all taxes. But, you know, ultimately, I don't want anything to do with whatever judgment will be visited upon the government. And the judgment, as we've talked about recently, it's not a, you know, it's easy, I think, for humans with a human psychology to think about, okay, well, it's we wait until the dust settles, and then we sort of, you know, the actuaries or whoever comes in and sort of assesses the damage, and then, you know, kind of separates the wheat from the chaff and all of that. But really what happens is the government is not going to be able to, in my view, this is my opinion, right? And any government of man, but particularly the United States, because that's where I was born and raised and live, it's not going to be able to prove itself and show itself to have a redemption value, right? It's not, it has no value beyond this world of death and game of lies. And, you know, ultimately it seems to me like that's what's important, is what I am, you know, is not from this place. In fact, is beyond time, space, location, place. And now it's here based on delusion, right? Illusion and delusion, you know, in this vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions, and delivering a performance. And then it either performs consistent with what it is, or it was never that thing in the first place. See, that's the key, because how easily can something that's not one with that force, well, it can certainly pretend to be that force. It can pass itself off as at least following that force, or so-called, air quotes, God the Father, you know. Yes, it can. That's a LARP, right? So how much attachment can there be to things like what the government is doing? You know, sign your name to the bottom of the government. How about no? Right. And as we see Moloch's machine and these various systems of man, you know, in service of antithesis, Satan, whatever you want to call it, world of death, game of lies, it's all set up that the individual by default just goes into those various mechanisms and serves those various systems. And, you know, next thing you know, here's Benton on the side of the road waiting for a tow, and then the local, you know, on some level, that like sophisticated country bumpkins show up and, you know, treat old Benton like a piece of garbage on some level, you know, which is that inappropriate? You know, from their perspective, I'm not doing the things, right? I'm not living proper, you know, I'm not doing the things, you know, but in their mind, they did things properly, and then they had a lifestyle and they were cared for just because they're, you know, came up through, you know, a time in which it was possible to seemingly do things properly and be rewarded, and now it's all gone to shit, and that can't ever be their fault, or that can't ever be, well, it was always this way. So now here's he's a white guy and he's from the South, but here's old Benton on the side of the road. And then, you know, I think from their perspective, there's some version of, you know, well, look, he's driving a 2019 hunk of junk with 700,000 miles on it, as if that's somehow my fault, right? Like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Did they give me a choice in the matter? Right? I mean, there's always a choice, but, and ultimately it's this system of things. It can't ever treat what I am properly because, well, in fact, it does treat what I am properly because this realm, in fact, exists in opposition to what I am. So, of course, these people who may very well, again, be apprehended or may be in possession of, it may be buried deep, but, Nancy Pelosi's MS-13 spark of divinity, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. It might be in there somewhere. It's buried so deep, and again, bow down before the one they serve. They're going to get what they deserve. Well, I'm not the head of that department. That's got nothing to do with me. And so again, now we're back to the persecution, the spiritual attacks, and it's one thing to accept the spiritual attack. It's another thing to expect it. And I'll be honest, I didn't quite expect it, but it didn't take me very long to realize, oh, okay, well, this is, spiritually attacked. That's fine, whatever. It's part of the game. But then, however these various systems of man are served by me even driving the truck in the first place, whatever this guy that owns this trucking company is up to, whatever he's got going on, I'm participating in that, or Benton's performance, more correctly, not what I am. Benton's performance is participating in that, right? And, that appeals to my own personality, this idea of delivering a performance that, can be critiqued, and then over time mastering those abilities to perform, in spite of being born into, great limitation, because of the time and the place and the ways in which I was, indoctrinated from day one, right? And indoctrination, that's a key point, to be, subject to indoctrination. And there's that word doctrine, and I'm not going to go to the dictionary just yet, maybe later, but not reading the chat right now, but people are free to chat, of course. So these are the things I think about, and these are the mysteries to be pondered. And then again, in this inverted realm, how much is the intelligence of the being eventually, as we see with myself, how much of my own mental energies and intelligence is now wrapped up in, uninverting or reversing a lot of these inversions to be able to see clearly, right? And now you get into a projection on a screen, but, now we see through a glass darkly also, right? It's like, at what point is the light projection, is the image reversed or inverted? Is that, again, thankfully not intelligent enough to figure all that out. It probably doesn't matter, but I can listen to David Icke talk about it for 7 hours without going into the personality politics of David Icke. That's a performer. That's a personality performing. I'm talking about the material that he's covered in the past. 7-hour seminars on a lot of these topics, right? It's getting a little chilly in here. I think I'm going to turn the stove on. And so I think bringing it back to this tragic reality feller, our channel, did I lose my point? I think he's not really understanding, and just probably based on his youth or whatever, which is fine. He's certainly ahead of wherever I was at his age, about 25, I guess, way ahead of where I was. But, I don't think really understanding and grasping the nature of the NPC normie hordes who rush in to normalize everything that's congruent or not incongruous, right? Such as, oh, this channel's live, and then maybe he doesn't really understand live streaming, but what the vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions, the transacting of business, because this is a person who says, he's doing this for his own entertainment. He's doing it as a side job. It's basically his part-time job to do YouTube. He looks at it as a job to make money. And so now the money has incentivized him to interact with his audience, because that's what people want increasingly, or not want. That's what individuals, and more correctly, the NPC normie hordes, respond to the interactivity, right? And as we see, TikTok leading the way, well, YouTube is dying in some ways, in my opinion. But we see, what I've seen on YouTube is a lot of the normies have actually been changed by TikTok. So sometimes I see these channels that I enjoy that are kind of yapper. There's people who yap, and I'm sure I'm fall into that vein at times. But I'll see in the comments basically like people are like, hey, this would be a good video if this guy would stop yapping. And at a certain point, but then I'm like, yo, I'm here for the yapping. It's like, yeah, he's a little long-winded. I agree with you, but the normie NPC doesn't even understand that it's something they lack because they've already normalized TikTok. So now why are they on YouTube? I don't know. Maybe they've switched phones and they're having trouble getting the TikTok app on their new, who knows? I have no idea why they're here, but I am able to observe it and see, okay, well, clearly, something's changed, with the audience. Something's now different. Their own, maybe they started with the attention span of a goldfish and now it's blunted even further. And they, again, because of the business aspects of these platforms, they rightly expect to be served. Of course they do. And that's what this is. So now you have Tragic Reality attempting to do live streams because that's what the audience responds to. And, it is somewhat of a competitive environment, YouTube versus these other platforms. And YouTube, again, now we're back to a stock price, right? Now we're back to a series of never-ending record profits. Something's got to give. And yeah, I understand it's the books get cooked by accountants and they're all in runs on some level, but the thing's got to be able to show certain metrics on paper financially. So next thing you know, here's Tragic Reality as a content creator in a channel sort of stretching his own comfort zone, when the reality is, if he wanted to if the financial incentives are there, he could keep doing live streaming and figure out another way. It doesn't have to be reading the chat and responding to the chat. It doesn't have to be that. And once they start hitting him with super chats, that's another thing. How about don't interact with the audience and only read the super chats? That can be a thing, right? There's many ways to skin a cat, as they say. And so I'll claim innovation in the space a little bit because, I was one of the early people who was basically in the so-called truth community who was like, give me money, which really is not my nature overall. But then it was like, oh, once I became annoyed and frustrated, once I allowed myself to become annoyed and frustrated with the audience at large, then I felt justified to just basically say, give me money. And they did, that was uncomfortable. They gave me a lot of money. It's like, oh, this is what you want? Okay, motherfucker, will this shut you up? Right? I was like, whoa. And so in some ways I innovated a little bit this idea of just sort of forcing the audience to pay for things, because yeah, I'm happy to pay to live stream to some extent, but eventually it's like, yeah, I'm going to have to go back to truck driving. If folks back then when I was doing hotel streams, it was like, yeah, I could use the rest, with my diet and getting good sleep. And then, if people donate enough, I can probably wait 2 to 3 more months before I go back to truck driving, which is what happened. Basically, in 3 months, the stream paid for the price of the room I was staying in. And I had enough money saved up to pay for, my basic expenses. So now I see more of a Flow State, who's a content creator. Again, best branding since the situation from Jersey Shore, but kudos to you, sir, in that regard. But I see him over time learning how to sort of master the extracting of money from the audience, and which is always fair in a vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions. But how often do we see just a regular old person is expected not to take the food stamps? It's like, oh, well, get a job. It's like, yo, I wouldn't wish a job on my worst enemy. I had jobs my whole fucking life up until my mid-30s. And actually, after my first divorce, there was a period of time when I didn't work a job, but that didn't last that long. And I collected unemployment. And my thing was, look, why does this exist? I paid into this. Why wouldn't I collect it? And it was barely anything, you know. It was barely anything, but it's like, why wouldn't I collect the unemployment? And so pretty quickly I realized that it's, for individuals, it's a moral imperative, but for banks and corporations and the big fat cats, morality has nothing to do with it. The government changes the tax code, and now if somebody wants to spend $2 million on the cheapest brand new, I think it has to be brand new, the cheapest brand new private jet, well, if they're going to owe $2 million in taxes this year, they get to write off 100% of that purchase against their taxes. So the government's giving them a free jet, but only if they meet certain criteria. And then they have to have tax professionals and lawyers have to sign off, so that, because the individual business person does not want to increase their chances of getting audited. And also, if they're audited, they want to have these, you know, respected, capable professionals to have signed off on it, versus just whoever lives next door to you that has 3 children, and, you know, the government says they get a certain amount of EBT. Well, how could anybody have a problem with that? See, I'm confused, because are not people, these are the same people that want to be tax-paying citizens on a W-2. This is what they want. They want to be seen as good little boys and girls. And so the government, that they are in some way signing their name at the bottom of the government says these people get X amount of EBT every month. How could anybody go to work on a W-2, believe America's the richest, greatest country of all time, and then have a beef with people getting EBT? Because that's all one thing. That is the government. That is the systems. Why do they think that it's appropriate for them to parse out and say, well, this part's bad, we don't want this? Guess what? If you ask me, you know, why is there no discussion? Why is there no, you know, debate around, is a rich person going to be able to write off 100% of the value of a private jet in year one? You know, why isn't that at least a conversation? You know, why isn't much of what the government does, banker bailouts, free money for nothing to already rich financial institutions and corporations? That's just neither here nor there. And then, yeah, every once in a while there's the 08, 09 bailouts, and then, you know, there's an uprising and people sort of express their frustration, and then it gets resolved in the ways that suit the system, and then everybody moves on. And then next thing you know, it's 2022 or 2023, and the government and the Federal Reserve bailed out the banking system again. It's just now they saw what happened in 08, 09. They know that the people are going to be down with it, so they don't even tell the people. They just do it, right? But then the same people who barely had any level of indignation around the banker bailouts of 08, 09 and bailing out, you know, General Motors and these other corporations, who barely pitched a fit about that. Well, now it's 2025, and they're getting squeezed because the NPC normies want to be tax-paying citizens. They want to be on a W-2. That, you know, they want to have a credit score. They want to be able to get a home loan. They want to be able to get consumer credit. So they love this system of things. They love the transactional nature. But then why can't they recognize that exact same system, for its own purposes, right, not in service of the lady who lives next door with 3 children, it's to suit the system, as it always is. And what the system has decided is that it's better for the system to pass out a bunch of EBT, which is, if you look at the size of the government, is basically nothing, right? Now, it's a portion. If you look at food stamps and Section 8, which is about $130 billion, of course it goes up every year, but it's about $130 billion total. Yeah, there is an effect where that is now basically 10% of the interest on the national debt. And if you know anything about bankers, and I learned this from reading that book, Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, a banker always pays himself or herself first. So the bankers must be reasonably assured that they're going to get their interest payments on the debt. So now you have, oh, well, here's Elon Musk and Doge trying to cut the government down to size, which is basically impossible, as we see. It's nearly impossible to actually cut government spending. So the bankers are going to be paid, most likely continue to be paid based on the continued inflation. Which, what is inflation? It's a tax against poor people. So first you have inflation that affects the poor people the most, right? And simultaneously, to sort of test the waters and see what happens because of a, quote, government shutdown, now they don't get their EBT on time, which they're probably still going to get it, most likely, although it's still unclear. But they're going to probably get at least something this month, and then most likely the full shot next month. But who knows, right? And the only valid point from my perspective that I've seen people make is, hey, these people are morons for just believing that this money's always going to be there. Oh, I totally agree. Anybody who just assumes the government's going to continue to give them free money is insane. Like, that's insane. The government will turn that shit off anytime it feels like it. Same thing with the corporations. If it decides to, if it's possible, right? If it's even possible, the government will do, it's going to do what it's going to do. What does the government do? The government does whatever power and money makes it do. Period. Now, if enough people get upset and start pitching a fit, that could at least represent not power, it represents the potential for power. And make no mistake, the system is always taking the pulse of the public to see, well, what will they put up with and what will they not put up with, while continuing to sign their name at the bottom of the government. And like it or not, the person next door to you who receives EBT and is on Section 8, they're signing their name at the bottom of the government. And that's really all this system cares about on some level. Because now we're back to antithesis, the spiritual war, and antithesis needing to be able to pause the simulation at some point, and to then have the court case with legalese and say, well, look, it's supposed to be Book of Job out here. Have you considered my servant Job? And supposedly these beings came here with the spark of divinity, and born in a state of spiritual perfection, and look how they've been behaving of late. That's what's happening here. That's the reason for the realm, folks. That's why all of this seems to be happening. So, do you think antithesis, Moloch's machine, Satan, air quotes, gives a fuck about what you think about the person next door getting food stamps? Well, it doesn't, except whatever it needs to do to keep all y'all, and I don't mean you, the listener, to keep all of them, the NPC normie hordes, continuing to sign their name at the bottom of the government. And the reality is, because it is class warfare in a way, that the person who works a job and slaves away for a corporation, they're just jealous that there's people who figured out how to do less slavery for corporations. That's really all it comes down to. But they can't ever be jealous of the rich people who are getting free, more or less getting free private jets, because number one, they've been indoctrinated to believe it's somehow possible for them to get rich. But it's not. But their mind control and the programming is so heavy, they actually believe it's possible for them to have generational wealth. And I used to talk to Big L about this. Haven't talked to him in quite a while, but especially women, but not just women, also younger. There's people now who believe, they have been, the social media platforms and all of this, they actually believe that they're going to have generational wealth. It's like, what? That's not even possible, number one. Number two, imagine believing such a thing. That they're just going to manifest in law of attraction and, the secret or whatever. They're going to secret their way into generational wealth. Meanwhile, what amount of money would represent generational wealth? I mean, that's insane. Would they even know how to, again, now you're getting into trust law, and you're getting into, who can be trusted to structure these legal entities so that, nobody can figure out how to steal the generational wealth. Because let's say, somebody did come into billions of dollars somehow, and, that has to be, for it to even to be generational wealth, it has to be structured in a way that nobody in the family can steal all of it. right? Because as soon as the wrong person is in the wrong position, and there's a loophole, or there's just enough of a chink in the way that the trust is structured, they're going to steal all the money. That's human nature. That's what people do, buddy. So, I don't think people even understand what generational wealth actually is. How can somebody aspire to and assume that they're going to achieve a thing and don't even know what it is, right? And some of this, when I look at this idea of winning the lottery or whatever, look, I won the lottery, meaning I knew about Bitcoin when it had never been beyond $35. That's to win the lottery. The fact that I chose not to buy the lottery ticket, that's a completely separate matter. But, what would my life be like if I had, if it was 2025 and I had $500 million in Bitcoin or whatever it would have been, whatever $4,000 would have bought in $35 worth of Bitcoin. But most likely I would have just played poker with it and lost it anyway. Like, it doesn't really matter. But, it's not outside the realms of possibility that I could be, worth $500 million through Bitcoin. I had $4,000. I knew about Bitcoin way before it was ever worth $35, and I could have, there is a world in which Benton would have just said, fuck it, I'm just going to buy this and hold it. It didn't happen, but it was possible. It could have happened. I was looking into it and chose not to. But then it's like, okay, what do you even do with the 500 million? It's got to be protected. It's got to be managed, right? It's got to be, people are going to try to steal it every moment of every day, right? The system's going to try to steal it. Other humans are going to try to steal it. It's going to be chipped away at and chipped away at and chipped away at. It's not that much money. I mean, it's really not. Once you start spending 500 million on what you can spend 500 million on, it's not a lot of money. I know people think that's insane. Oh, well, I'd like to have that problem. It's not a lot of money. Once you start buying shit, it's really not. It wasn't that long ago. What's up, Joe Moore? It wasn't that long ago that a person could purchase a fucking professional sports franchise with 500 million. Guess what? Can you operate it? So let's say, back in the day, I could have bought the Clippers for 380 million in cash. Can I run the Clippers on 120? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Perhaps, maybe not. Oh, an inexperienced NBA owner, they're probably going to steal half of my 120 right off the bat. They're just going to steal it somehow. They're going, hey man, there's all this stuff you got to pay for. I'm not going to know the difference. Next thing you know, I'm trying to operate a fucking sports franchise on 60 million. What's 1 year of NBA salaries and, back then, right? You got to have, and that's, people don't understand business. And that's when you say it takes money to make money. There has to be a slush fund. And this is the major reason I never bought my own truck when a really good tractor was available for $15,000 and I had $15,000, just because I knew I needed $50,000 in cash just to even to know, okay, most likely I'm going to not go out of business no matter what happens with 50,000. It's still a crapshoot, right? It's like, no, I don't. Why? Yeah, I could keep working my company job and save up 50,000. Meanwhile, I got to buy the tractor right now. And some people say, oh, that's an asset. Oh yeah, it's a depreciating asset. Costs money to park it somewhere. I'm not using it in the meantime. It's degrading. It's becoming worth less money, and it's having less utility. What if what if it takes me 3 fucking years, right? What if unforeseen things occur, my health or whatever? See, people don't put all of this together. They don't think about all of this simultaneously. They just think, oh, look, I got the money. Truck driving is the way, the rates are high. Here we go. Well, yeah, but what about when the engine seizes up on the side of the road in Virginia and it's $1,750 just to get to sit at a truck stop for 2 days? Never mind how to fix the truck, right? And so what I've noticed in truck driving is it's not that unusual to just see some truck somewhere. It's like, yeah, that's where it got towed to after it broke down. And, maybe the tow people got paid, maybe they didn't. And then there was just no money to fix it. So there it is. And if it's parked on the street somewhere next to a truck stop, that's just where it just decays. It's still there 15 years later. It just decayed and rusted out and fell apart to nothing, right? This happens. You'll see whole yards in cities and in the countryside. You'll see like some old yard with chock full of empty trailers from the mid 1970s or whatever, and it's just like, yeah, they went out of business, and there's the property and there's the trailers. They're just out of business, right? How can people see that and not, put all that together? How can they see it and not do the math? I'm gonna open the window. I think these fumes are starting to get to me. What about this? What about this carbon monoxide alarm? Yep. Anyway, get a little oxygen in here, Bubba. It's like, yeah, what do you do with 500 million? I mean, I don't know. You probably just try not to let anybody know you got 500 million, right? But then, like, what level of home can a person even buy, right? I don't even want a house. I don't want property. So it's like, okay, would I have ever discovered that I enjoy truck driving as a lifestyle, right? Because I would probably just drive a big rig and live in a big rig. I know that sounds crazy, but with $500 million, I could just kind of do it however I felt like doing it. It's basically just being able to drive across the country for free, more or less. Pull somebody's freight from here to there. I don't like hanging out at truck stops, but hell my, And this is a world of death. There's no life here anyway. There's no external meaning, right? So in a way, it's just marking time anyway. Like, what's the utility of the $500 million? When a person is no longer strongly identified with their dead flesh, as the son of man or a son of man, what's the fucking difference? Money, no money. And now we get into the Bible talking about, easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to enter into heaven or whatever. And, oh, well, that just means blah, blah, blah. The people, when they came to town, there was the interest of the city was shaped like, well, who cares? I don't give a fuck. It's still, the analogy holds, we're just going to negate analogies from the Bible now so that people can, who've had all this prosperity preaching nonsense, smoke blown up their ass. What did Christ say? The rich man showed up and said, basically, how can I follow you? He said, sell all your shit, partner, give it to the movement, and follow me. And he ran away because he doesn't know who he is without his wealth expand. That's what it is to be a wealthy person. Their identity becomes tied to becoming richer and richer. So when this guy shows up to confirm that the engine on the truck is seized up, well, in his mind, he's still the person who had 60 trucks. And he's still the person who had a $3 million divorce, right? And that's his identity. And so now he's lost as a result. His own identity is cut. He's cut off from his own identity, right? And so now he's an alcoholic, most likely. I can tell he seems like a drunk and, a functioning alcoholic. And then, showing up and treating me like a piece of garbage. Why? Because I know what I am. And I'm clearly not bothered by any of this. I'm not in a state of panic or fearful whatsoever of being on the side of the fucking highway when, I'm just sitting in the truck and somebody can just crash into the whole rig at any time, right? Who cares? But I prefer not. But, and that's the power. See? Power over the power. And, it doesn't seem possible to be sent to this realm and not have access to power. So, of course, the realm teaches that the only way to access power and money is by serving this system of things, by becoming a good little W-2 wage slave with a social security number, paying taxes, and then eventually to be a good little boy or girl and to work your way up, bootstrapping, which I don't even really understand what that expression is supposed to mean, but to eventually, rise to some kind of level, within society. And, just this idea of contributing to society. And we see it with the food stamps. I was in one of my favorite channels, Tarman, the Starman, and, they're talking about the food stamps, and there's people in the chat basically saying, talking about jobs and contributing to society. I'm like, society's trash. There's no value, or it's not a good thing to contribute to trash society. Like, that's straight up mind control. The idea of that it's good to contribute to society. Well, yeah, if the society's good, and what is the being contributing? To what? Contribute my human effort and labor and struggle and strife and to stress myself out and to put myself in a bad position, to make myself powerless so that a corporation can be empowered. And then, oh, well, that's contributing to society and that's what I'm supposed to do. Says who? Who says that's what I'm supposed to do? And now we're back to what? Status quo, social contract, go along to get along, and conformity to peer groups. Oh, we won't ridicule and mock you, and we won't blast you with fear, guilt, and shame, little Benton, as much, as long as you contribute to society. Well, what about the part where I look around and say society's garbage and I don't want anything to do with it? Again, hey, Benton, sign your name at the bottom of the government. And then we will not mock you as much. Then we won't ridicule you as much. Then we won't blast you with fear, guilt, and shame as much. We're still going to blast you with fear, guilt, and shame, just less of it. And so what's left in the breach will feel like we love and tolerate you, Benton, when really we can barely stand the sight of you. And by we, I mean society. We'd really wish you were never, on some level, society's always just going to wish I was never born. That's just a fact. But because of status quo, social contract, conformity to peer groups, well, he's here, so he might as well prove himself useful and not be a burden. And my own father at one point said to me, well, I don't want to be a burden. I said, when have you ever been a burden? This guy worked his whole life. Like, what are you fucking talking about? You know, and it's especially this idea of job creation and all this. You're a job creator. What are you talking about? That shows you the games and the mind control. Got to turn this stove off. I don't know if this is lack of oxygen or something's going on. I'm getting lightheaded. Anyway, who cares? Does it even matter? Probably not. Probably not. And until individuals can think all this through for themselves, what hope is there for humanity? Well, there is no hope for humanity. And there's not supposed to be hope for humanity, because humanity is that's an illusion, right? It's dead. Humanity's dead, folks. Nature is dead. If you can find life in humanity or life in nature, I would say that's mind control, that's delusion, and that's to believe something that's just simply can't be validated. Go find me something alive out here. Now I can. It's in here. Find me something out there that's alive. Oh, well, here's a tree. Yeah, it's animated death. It's death warmed over. Great. Wonderful. Yeah, touch grass. Sure. Right. Sure. Yeah, I also enjoy the wondrous nature of beauty. There's a lot of phenomena that I find wondrous. And some of it's not nature. Some of it is, a movie. Somebody made a movie. Oh, it's a YouTube channel. Like, there's many forms of wonder. Meanwhile, isn't the movie and the YouTube channel, that's as natural as anything else, isn't it? Oh, well, I came out of my mama in 1975 and there was grass and trees and streams and air and it all seems to be real, so therefore it must be real. Why? Because it seems to be? It has to be? What? So there's no possibility for trickery. There's no possibility for things to not be what they seem. Because I came out of my mama in 1975 and was told certain things. So it's just not. You're telling me that the earth and the grass and the air and the animals and the plants have to be living? Why? Because somebody said so, and because everybody, when I got here, when I came online starting in the early 80s, consciousness, because it seemed to be happening, that it must be true? No, that's called consensus. Oh, because most people are, and meanwhile, I came out of my mama, came online, and I just immediately started acting like everybody else in my own little way. Oh yeah, of course, just accepting these things. Yeah, contribute to society, productive member of society, work hard, do this, do that, right? To not be cast out, to not be ridiculed, to not be mocked, right? To seemingly be loved and accepted, right? Seemingly. As long as I don't what? bring forth the spirit of what I am. As long as whatever needs to be done so that Benton does not bring forth and express and manifest the spirit of what he is, which is, what else is there for Benton to do? Again, compared to what I am, how can a tree be alive? Compared to what I am, how can nature actually be this living, breathing thing? No, it's what I am is so great that the subversion of the greatness of what I am, animated death, death warmed over, makes these things seem to have life. Especially in comparison to what I am. This shit is dead, man. This world is dead. The government's dead. The money's dead. It's all dead. Again, render unto Caesar, let the dead bury the dead. Right? And if I have my way, Benton is going to be put to death for sedition. And if these Christians have this idea that it's the last days and the prophecies, and Illuma Tommy, if anybody knows who this is, has talked about the idea of more or less just lining up the Christians, and they have to take the mark, or they're basically it's off with their heads. Well, that's to be executed for sedition, and that's basically saying a version of sign your name at the bottom of the government, sign off on what the government does, right? The mark is the money, folks. Sign off on what the government's doing, or off with your head. That's to be executed for being a threat to the system. That's what that is. That's the Christ story, or it's a big part of it. That's a big part of the Christ story. Executed for sedition by the state of. So when I pray, that's in my prayers, right? Not to have that happen to me necessarily, but it's an acknowledgement and an affirmation of that's what the Christ story is. It's to live in a way to force the hand of the system of things into either, again, is the populace, if every single individual is born with that, MS-13, Nancy Pelosi's MS-13 spark of divinity, this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine, it would theoretically be possible for enough of those individuals to rise to a level within themselves, uncovering the perfected path that would have to lie within if they are what I am, and to then walk that path. That would make most of what the government does impossible. It couldn't happen. You can't have a military that travels to foreign lands and murders the people that live there. Not with an enlightened populace, and I heavy air quotes on enlightened. You can't do that. It's not possible. Right? You can't have a financial system in the way that there's a financial system. You can't have a transactional society because a society of enlightened beings is not going to transact in those ways. Right? Based on fraud and scam nation. Right? In America, a scam. The populace will simply not be capable of participating. You can't have an authoritarian populace. I'm sorry, you can't have an authoritarian government without an authoritarian populace. So America's been authoritarian my whole life, and it's becoming more authoritarian. Why is it becoming more authoritarian? Because the people are becoming more authoritarian. And so that's where you get an authoritarian who says, hey, these people could get jobs. And I'm like, I wouldn't wish a job on my worst enemy. And then they're like, hey, they need to be productive members of society. I'm like, society's garbage. Who would want to be a productive member of a garbage society? That's crazy. Because that's the spirit of what I am saying. Why would I degenerate within myself to participate in this? Just like Christ, when baptized, right, and beginning his ministry, no job, no tax liability, and did not handle money. Because how can he degenerate within himself and then express in the way he was meant to express? See? And make no mistake, Benton's one function in this delusion, right, the idea that it's possible to individuate and break off a little chunk of an indivisible force, right, the highest levels of vibrational frequency possible, a quickening spirit, and then now it's here performing as Benton. The purpose of Benton is to express the spirit of what he is. That's it. That's it, and that's all. Now, how does that function? The intellect understands that in the way that the intellect was indoctrinated, because we have a note here from earlier, indoctrination, doctrine. It's called to facilitate the resurrection of the risen Christ within my energy sphere, within delusion, within individuation. Because looking at Christ's performance within delusion of showing the way of, hey, this is possible, right? This can be done. Now go do it, right? And I see basically nobody doing that, right? Now, I'm not going to say, oh, I'm the only one doing it. But it's possible, folks, that I'm the only reason, and I'm not putting this out there like a Messiah complex. Believe me, I don't suffer from, Benton don't suffer from that. The point is, as long, it doesn't have to be Benton, because Benton, let's just say Benton represents that and then passes away at age 75 or whatever. As long as somebody else is coming online right about that time and is bringing forth and expressing the risen, resurrected Christ within them, antithesis can't pause the game, right? To say, look, we got them. We've won the spiritual war. And then now you get into the idea of the time is short. Is that some acknowledgement that at a certain point the game resets, right? And then you have, now it's the idea of a golden age. Well, if you reset the game and now antithesis hasn't had thousands of years within a delusion to set up the indoctrination systems, now antithesis starts over at square one. Now this is your so-called, you know, especially like the Hindus and some of these ancient religions, it's this idea of a golden age. So the last days in some ways is what we're now living through seemingly, although it's dying through, it's not living through, it's dying through. What we're now dying through individually, right? If this, and it can get way worse, clearly, but you know, if this is near to the period of a reset and it resets into a golden age because antithesis has to start over from square one. So of course, when the populace is at a certain level of awareness and they're risen within themselves, a lot of things just aren't possible. So in fact, is the resetting of the game, is that finally when antithesis, or is it just never possible? Is it never possible? See, I don't know. These are mysteries beyond my pay grade. Is it just the simulation runs for a period of time and then resets? And is it antithesis is always, you know, with these demonic attacks and, you know, this idea in the Bible that the time is short, and, you know, there's a specific story where Christ shows up and a man's infested with demons, and the man doesn't recognize Christ, but the demons inside the man recognize Christ, and they're like fearful, and they're like, hey, it's not the time yet, meaning, hey, are you here to destroy us? And if so, we know we have a certain amount of time. And so it seems to me like the time that they have is up until this game resets, or antithesis gets to pause the game and say, well, look, victory is mine, right? Meaning none of these little lights are shining anymore, which probably isn't possible, right? Because now we're into have you considered my servant Job territory. It's probably not strictly speaking possible. Because can darkness ever entirely drive out light? And that is the spiritual war. Is that possible? Can darkness ever fully drive out the light? See? That seems to be the spiritual war. So my job is to uncover the perfected path that lies within and walk it well enough that if in fact the philosophy of solipsism is valid on some level, and don't know, don't care, is Benton's performance the only thing propping this up in the short term? And is that even a good thing, right? Because then if all the lights go out, is it now, you know, just now it's never-ending slavery? I don't know. Again, it's don't know, don't care. Because ultimately, all Benton controls within this delusion is his own performance. So it doesn't even matter. It's irrelevant. It's not relevant, because what I am can't concern itself with what, a fake realm of death? How degenerated is what I am? How far would what I am have to degenerate to even concern itself with the goings on of a fucking just this place? And then I'm starting a controversy by saying the trees aren't alive. Nothing's alive except what I am. If it ain't what I am, it's dead. That's it. And I don't mean Benton the personality or the performer or the performance. The force that you can't divide, the indivisible force, right? Again, beyond time, space, location, place. The possibility of antithesis, the possibility of subversion of creative force, this possibility of a delusion of time, space, location, place via delusion and illusion. That all exists within what I am, not the other way around. The inversion teaches quite the opposite. See, it's this idea of, oh well, Benton, yeah, you've got to, you're born into this, you know, with this divine soul or whatever. But the inversion is, yeah, there's a man in the sky, and you know, if you dogma and doctrine and check all the little boxes, then eventually you'll be transported to the fucking pearly gates, and an old white man will put on his spectacles and start looking through the fucking scrolls and see if you, the personality and the performer and the performance, get to go into heaven, and then you get to hang out with your fucking your animals, your dogs from the past, and your family members and your friends and whoever. Don't give a fuck about any of that. What I am, don't give a fuck about any of that, because what I am understands from day one that my family don't exist, my pets don't exist, my friends don't exist, and Benton don't exist, except one with the most super intelligent power, source, and force of love and creation possible at the highest levels of vibrational frequency, a quickening spirit, my home, from whence I came, from that thing that can never be created, can never be destroyed, was never born, will never die, will never know death, will never know fucking fear, will never know anxiety, will never know guilt, will never know shame. That thing. It certainly will never know a human personality. It certainly will never know a human personality of a father or a mother or a sister or a brother or a friend or a pet. It will never know that. Only within delusion. And then now we have the strength of the delusion and how strongly the individual attaches to the strong delusion. Clinging to it, why? Fear. Fearfully clinging to a strong delusion. Oh my God, pretty please with sugar on top, let this strong delusion be strong enough so that, to justify what? The great level of the fear? Does the fear have to exist on a one-on-one level? Does the fear have to be as strong as the delusion? I guess so. And so the clinging to an idea of, well, I want to see my grandmother again. My grandmother's 91 years old, and I can't be bothered to go see her except maybe once every 5 years. But now I've been indoctrinated to want to go hang out with her in heaven. She's still here, motherfuckers. Or, oh, I'm going to go see my famous grandfather. Yeah, I saw him some when he was here. Who cares? Like, look at how the being behaves while it's all still possible. And then just the schism in the psyche of, oh, well, let's go and see him in the place beyond this place. Why? Because of some fantasy that we couldn't get along completely. We couldn't love each other completely because there is no love here. We couldn't accept each other. We couldn't tolerate each other fully because of the business transactions and because of the way this world is designed, keeping up appearances. Oh, so now let's fantasize about going into the fucking heavenlies, and now we can hang out with each other. Well, we've already proved that we really didn't even like each other in the first place, haven't we? Now, yeah, you know, there's some regard. I like my grandmother. You know, I like my mom. Well, I like my sisters, even though we don't necessarily get along. I'd like to like my dad, but that's a whole nother issue. But either way, what are we talking about? It's clinging to a thing that has no life in the first place. There's no life to this. Again, the only possibility of life within delusion is within me. That's it. There's no external meaning out here. Now, can I live a life? Well, more correctly, can I go through a slow process of death, of being indoctrinated and every single day seeking to make something, to make sense of all of this out here? That's the human condition, is to falsely believe through indoctrination that it's possible to make sense and meaning and breathe life into this delusion and illusion that lies outside. It can't be done. So, of course, antithesis spins us all up individually into doing that. To what end? To the end of, to serving the purposes of antithesis. That's to be defeated right out of the gate from day one. And religion is here to teach people, oh, well, here's the path to victory. The path to victory is to never leave the path of defeat. Whose victory? On what basis? In service of whom or what? Until the being can answer every single one of those questions specifically, they're lost. And I'm here to tell you, John 14:26, the Comforter, which is the Holy Ghost, I will send in my name, or the Father will send in his name, or whatever. It doesn't even matter because we're already in delusion. God the Father, Christ the Son, the Holy Ghost, it doesn't even fucking matter. All that matters is whatever that force is, the spirit of what I am, if I uncover it within myself, there it is, teaching me all things, including, oh, now we're an expert, and now it's almost out of the blue, Benton is exhibiting an expert level of Bible interpretation. It's probably why I never really let anybody interpret it to me so much. Here and there, yeah, kind of, sort of. Because would not the being understand there's something in the being that can perfectly interpret the Bible? Perfectly in the English language, the KJV, which is to understand that a lot of it is just straight up lies and nonsense. Yeah, much of the Bible in the English language in the KJV is motherfucking straight up lies and nonsense. Large portions of it, large swaths of it, nonsense. This person begot this one who cares? Who cares who begot who? Doesn't fucking matter. Doesn't fucking matter. The spirit of what I am tells me that doesn't fucking matter. The church says, oh, well, it better matter because you're going to be judged a little bit and based on the words of these books. The words of this book. I'm saying, well, you must not understand the book then, buddy. You must not understand the book. Or maybe they do understand the book and they're biased. They're biased towards their wallets. They're biased towards getting rewarded in this world. Render unto Caesar, let the dead bury the dead, see. They're cut off from what's inside of them. Because the moment I realize that the story of Christ is true, even if largely metaphorical, now I have access to what? Power in the name of the Lord Christ Jesus. And what else is there to be interested in this realm that only speaks the languages of money and power? Why would anybody be interested in anything other than power? If the being is not interested in power and the being does not access and wield power, the being is a slave by default. Beings without power and access to power default to slavery. Period. That's how it works. So again, go into the vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions and do what it tells you, and maybe it will give you just enough power and just enough money where you can plausibly call yourself not a slave. Meanwhile, as economic cycles continue to unfold, more and more people are having to look at their lives and can't come to any other conclusion other than, wow, this is corporate slavery. Yeah, except what I am is so powerful it can never be a slave. See? So yeah, government, here I am, come get me. Yeah, show up, government, and say, hey man, what about these taxes? You want to get on this payment program? No, not really. Oh, well, you certainly understand that you'll be federally indicted and the feds have a 95% conviction rate. Okay, where do you want me to report then? Are you pleading guilty? Well, not necessarily, but, just tell me where to go. Here, you want the dead flesh? Take the dead flesh. Render unto Caesar. Let the dead bury the dead. Take it. Take it. It's here. It's here anytime you want it. And as we see, the government will come seize what it considers its property, death, anytime it wants. From the perspective of the state, everything is the property of the state, including this dead flesh. Come and take it. Here. Now, do they really want to deal with old Benton? Probably not. Spiritually, can they necessarily stand up to that? I don't know. I guess maybe we'll find out. I suspect it won't ever happen. I suspect they'll just leave me alone as long as I want to drive a truck and continue to not file taxes. And at some point, my employer will probably receive enough letters, and enough letters will go to my mama's house, and she'll start freaking out. And I'll be like, hey, lady, would you pretty please just have my mail forwarded, or tell the post office you don't want to receive my mail anymore. I don't really need my mail sent to my mommy's house. But yeah, it's nice to be able to use her address at certain times, but I don't necessarily need to receive mail there. All right. But I don't need my mommy being worried. Oh, but we got psych meds for that anyway. So it's like, okay, mom, no more worry. No more worry. I guess my mom's a Zen Buddhist now. She's not worried about life anymore. Oh no, she's on some kind of antidepressant or anti-anxiety or whatever it is. Oh, well, but it's nothing. I bring it up to her. It's like, oh, it's nothing. It's such a low dose. My doctor said you can just go off of it anytime. Okay, well, if it's nothing, then why are you it has to be something. You're taking nothing? You're taking nothing, woman? Okay, well, then maybe it's just a sugar pill. Who knows? Right? And it's none of my business, so I don't go there with her. But it's like, clearly, lady, I grew up with you. And, this insane levels of anxiety and fear and worry are no longer present. So I know something's changed. Is she a Zen Buddhist now, or is she on the pills? I don't fucking know. But she says she's on the pills. But then, oh, well, it's nothing. It's 25 milligrams, you know, and my doctor said I can just go off of it anytime. Okay, why don't you then? Right? And remember, Benton's doing all of this and not on any drugs. Yeah, sometimes I'm on cannabis, and I don't think that helps, honestly. But I'm doing all of this on no drugs. How many people are out here living this life or this slow process of death on no drugs whatsoever? What do we got? You know, I probably had a little too much caffeine. The cold brews kicks like a fucking mule, that's for sure. I'm definitely buzzing off the coffee right now. But this is the first day with no dark chocolate, so I guess now I feel like I need to compensate. Right? And, oh, first day, no lion's mane. I'm off the dark chocolate and the lion's mane simultaneously, so it's like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Freak out, buddy. Oh, who cares, man? Who cares? What does it matter? What's the difference? Anyway, quick break. Biological needs. We'll be right back. But yeah, spiritual warrior genius. I mean, am I supposed to pretend like I'm like Benton, the performer, in the context of the performance, hasn't recently broken into probably like the very lowest tier of spiritual mastery? Am I supposed to just pretend like that's not a thing? You know, I don't need to declare myself some sort of ascended master, right? Well, who cares? I mean, honestly, does that matter? Because that can't be an identity. To identify, to create an image in relation to this place of spiritually ascended master, and then to uphold that before Moloch and Moloch's machine, to turn that into a business? Do you see what I'm talking about here? Oh, well, write a book, you know, start a cult, do this, do that. Why? Would a spiritually ascended master do any of that? My point is, it's a label and a container so that people have something to relate to, right? Do you think I give a flying fuck? Now, Benton is competitive, and Benton's never not going to compete with himself within himself, because that's what he likes to do, right? That's why Benton now listens to a bunch of bodybuilder channels, because what did bodybuilders do? They competed against themselves within themselves for years, and they did it with the discipline of basically like some kind of monk, right? They separated themselves from society while existing in society, and they did a thing that's extremely difficult, right? And they made their life or their slow process of death about that. And they did it to different degrees. Some of them had way more natural potential and then flamed out. Some of them had a lot of natural potential and realized it because they wouldn't listen to nobody. Right. Sean Ray. See, I don't know a lot about bodybuilding. It's something I sort of paid attention to, like MMA. I've just sort of passively, casually paid attention to it over time because I find it's interesting to me. And especially the Arnold Schwarzenegger stuff is super interesting in a ways. And then, of course, that's some version of, you know, an agent and, you know, psyops and mind control with respect to Arnold. But Sean Ray, he knew not to listen to nobody, because if he never would have, and he never even reached the pinnacle of bodybuilding. He got right there and never broke through. Mr. Olympia is considered the pinnacle, but he knew not to hire a coach. He knew not to listen to anybody. He knew that he was an artist, he was a performer, and he knew to listen to himself And that was the greatest expression of his abilities in bodybuilding. There was other people with his level of natural talent or beyond his level of natural talent, and listening to society ruin them, or listening to a coach ruin them, right? Or their own psychology, not being able to cope with their own psychology ruin them. It's fascinating, right? And then, you know, you got somebody like Lee Priest, you know, 5'5", 5 foot nothing, you know, probably the most genetically gifted of all time in certain ways. So genetically gifted, his mother, after he became a bodybuilder and he started earning a living as a bodybuilder, she was basically just like, hey, because apparently male-female, you know, doubles bodybuilding used to be a thing. And she's like, hey, I think I'd like to compete. Would you do doubles with me? And he's like, yeah, if you get in shape, you know, because she apparently was. His fucking mom became a champion bodybuilder and then just did it for a few years and went back to her normal life, right? So there's people who have the potential for these things, you know, and then now everybody just looks at it and goes, oh, steroids. Well, yeah, of course, steroids, but that's not the point. You can, you know, some bozo that doesn't have the genetic potential could take all the steroids they want, and they're never going to be Lee Priest, right? It's not fucking possible. This is not fucking possible. And of course, people don't believe Lee Priest when he says, yo, I did better on less steroids. He said, if I took higher doses, I didn't do as good, because there's certain people who just naturally respond to certain things in certain ways, right? Back when I was I never did bodybuilding, but when I was hitting the weights and eating a ton of food, I took one cycle of pro hormones. It was the one who was considered the strongest. Of course, Benton, surprise, surprise, favorite cartoon character, the Hulk, you know, Benton, you know, fucking go hard or go home. You know, of course, the only one he ever tried was the strongest one ever. I did one bottle of that. It turned me into a crazy person. I mean, I'm already aggressive. It made me just fucking, turned me into a lunatic. And yeah, I got stronger, but, you know, so what? And I'm sure, you know, in the long run, it was beneficial to putting on size, but imagine if I'd have got addicted to that and stayed on it. You know, I'd be, you know, one of these bozos with a gigantic gut at the age of 50 who's just like can't even fucking turn their neck, right? If I was even still here, it would have been horrible. And I got to 195 pounds, and all I could think about is, okay, now I got to get to 220 pounds. And so clearly it's like, okay, I'm doing the math. Once I get to 220, I'm just going to want to be 240. It's like, why? For what? Why, sir? I proved to myself I could do it. I competed against myself and won, right? Why? Why keep going? But it's still interesting. It's still fascinating to get inside the minds of these people, and why do they do these things? You know, for what purpose? You know, why do some people just need, and that's the spirit of what I am, man. It's that spirit that it's here, and it's, maybe it doesn't understand spirituality. Maybe it doesn't understand certain things, but it's going to do, you know, it's going to go and achieve and perform for its own purposes in certain ways. Yeah, and it's very interesting, right? And none of it's going to amount to a hill of beans, right? But, you know, in the delusion of time, Benton's got to do something with his time, right? Got to do something with it. Might as well listen to people talk about bodybuilding. Yeah. Well, and you want to talk about it's tough out there. I saw Snow before she probably went to sleep, up all night crew. Miss Sherelle, something about it's tough out there, but you know, it's never, you know, compared to the spirit of what I am, it's never too tough, right? It's never, and that's the idea that, you know, God doesn't throw at somebody more than they can handle, right? It's, well, that's not really correct. It's what I am. There's nothing this place can do when I'm aligned within myself with the spirit of what I am. This place can't touch me. There's nothing it can do to me. Nothing this place can do to me. It's not even real. It has no life. Death can't touch life. Death can't do anything to life, right? This place has to be dead. This place can't represent life, because if it did, it could not operate the way it operates. true actual source of life and creation and expansion would never behave this way, folks. And so this is the mockery and the ridicule and the humor, right? The antithesis in death certainly has a sense of humor, because to get the being to perform this way. And I made myself go watch some Michael Jackson videos. I watched the long form 13, almost 14-minute version of Thriller. And if anybody hasn't seen that recently, I can't recommend it, but man, there's a lot in there, buddy. And I don't even mean for decoding. There's just a lot in there. You know, in some ways that does seem to be, when I talk about that this world is dead and this is a slow process of death, to me, that Thriller video shows it, man, just right in your face. So much so that Michael Jackson, who, remember, was raised a Jehovah's Witness, the film starts with, you know, Michael saying, I want to make it clear that based on my strong personal convictions, I do not, you know, this is not meant, I don't have a belief in the occult, and this is not meant to represent, you know, a belief in the occult. It was, I forget how they worded it. It was worded quite eloquently. And then it said, you know, Michael Jackson. But then what's the difference, Michael? It's still a violation to then go out and participate in this thing. But again, why does the realm need, it's almost, in a way, it's a mockery of the Christ story. It's the representation of Michael Jackson as, you know, spiritual perfection. Him and his best girl are they're portrayed as spiritually innocent, but then the part before the song kicks in, the full moon turns Michael into some version of a werewolf. And isn't that some representation of the dead flesh? And it's the idea of, you know, innocence and perfection, and the source of what I am, the source of everything, is encased in a realm of death in the dead flesh, right? I mean, what else could that mean? I don't know. It's got to mean something symbolically. You know, why? And just remember, that was, you know, in whatever year that came out, that played repeatedly. The long form played way more than you ever would have expected on MTV. And then there was a shortened version that's like 3 minutes and 22 seconds. Of course it is. And, you know, that thing played at least once an hour probably. And I remember all of this. I was around when, you know, I remember when that video was I probably saw it debut, you know, most likely. I probably saw the world debut. MTV used to have world debuts of videos. I probably saw the fucking debut of the thing, you know. And for people that weren't there, or for people who've forgotten what things used to be like, that was a big fucking deal. A new Michael Jackson, especially, you know, there wasn't really 14-minute, you know, film production music videos back then. And it's really the first time that I'm aware of. Even Beat It, you know, even the video for Beat It, you know, there's something in there. And I would say if anybody's my age or older, but my age, you know, 50 seems to be about the sweet spot for some of this stuff. You know, go and I think it's important to watch it with the video, because remember, back in the day, we were watching the video. We heard the songs on the radio, but even more powerful was watching MTV particularly, and seeing, you know, Billie Jean or Beat It or Thriller or you know, even Cyndi Lauper, Madonna. You know, there's a lot going on in those videos, but again, not necessarily a decode, just a, you know, the symbology is there, right? In my opinion, in a lot of those videos, and to me, it's a reminder of to go back and romanticize the 80s and the 90s. Well, it was still devil worship. It was still a society of devil worship. So sort of pine away for the fun and the idea that the 80s and the 90s, that was somehow proper society. No, it wasn't. It wasn't proper society. It was wicked, craven, fallen society, just like the one today. Except like this is even more in your face, ridiculous, you know, as what? As the psychological condition and the mind control has accelerated, of course it can be even more in your face, just blatantly, you know, even more of what it already was in 1987 or whatever. You know, so in my mind, it's always a mistake to romanticize 1987, or even worse, you know, Leave It to Beaver and Ozzie and Harriet in the post-war period. You know, am I the only one who's watched Mad Men, the series? If that doesn't teach you about what the post-war period was like, I mean, come on, what are we doing? Crazy. Anyway, I think I'm going to make some more eggs. Is this think this bottle's on its way out. Probably need to get a new butane. Bust out a new butane. I guess the company will probably start calling me at some point. What time is it? Oh yeah, it's only 6 o'clock in 6 o'clock in Chicago. So yeah, that's a couple more, 2.5 more hours probably before anybody contacts old Benton. They'll want to probably find out before this guy leaves Chicago. They're probably going to want to find out let's find out if he's even still there. You know, for all they know, I fucked off to a hotel and the truck got towed out of here. You know, I didn't, but for all they know. Yeah, I'm still tripping out on Walmart delivering my groceries right to the truck. Not that I think this is a great thing. In some ways, it's not a great thing, but you know, it helped me out so that I'm able to if they do bring me a truck today or tomorrow, I can hit the road without having to immediately go to the supercenter for supplies. So that'll be helpful. It's like, yeah, you don't have self-driving trucks yet, trucking company owner. There's a human being. There's a human. There's a dead flesh. There's dead flesh. The dead flesh needs supplies, sir. Yeah, the spirit don't need it, but the dead flesh does. So I've got some seeded red grapes to look forward to later. The problem is I eat way too much of them. Yesterday, they actually made me sleepy. And no, I don't have diabetes, but because I get tested for it. But yeah. So that's the thing. The blueberries weren't very good, though. I have to say that. I got some blueberries, too. They were subpar, but whatever. Whatever, it happens. Better than no blueberries, I suppose. Nice. When these cans are brand new, the pressure regulation is not ideal on this stove. Now this one has the little tube on it so that it's not defeated by the cold temperatures. So that's good. Preheats the fuel, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. Whatever. Where are the notes? Yeah, so took a shower yesterday because I'm fighting these toes, my big toes. I'm always fighting the toenails with the fungus and everything. Trying not to be gross, but I've had to do my own podiatry. So my toenail started growing in. So a few days ago, I sterilized a metal implement and just started digging into my toes so that it won't ingrow. Basically to fix the ingrowth. And one of them pain don't hurt people. So I got in there and tore that up real good. And it really, iodine only goes so far. Topical iodine only goes so far with preventing infection. So I was like, yeah, I better go take a shower and clean this fucking thing up. So I got in the shower and did that. And then so it was like, well, now the skin was loosened up. So I was like, all right, better go to work on the other one. So I did a little bit of that. And so yeah, we're showered a little more often than normal here lately. Oh, I do need to see. Actually, it's on this phone. I need to see how many showers I got left. And then laundry. I did a load of laundry, but I probably should wash these sweatpants and these thermal underwears, which are like the Under Armour style, you know, the whatever that's made out of, synthetic material, I guess. But they got the front loading machines at Love's. I like the top loaders, but then, you know, the idea that they only really build junk anymore, half of them are out of order. So if I try to, and I don't want to do it now because it's too cold. So I go in there first thing, you know, if I try to go in there in the daytime, you know, the 2 working machines will probably be, it's 2 washers and 1 dryer is all that works in there. It's like, yeah, I could probably wash, but am I going to be able to dry? And now it's like, am I really going to sit around just waiting for somebody to come get their clothes? It's like, yeah, in the old days, you used to just take their shit out of the dryer and be like, hey, man, where were you? That shit's over with. Like, no, that society's moved beyond that. I ain't touching anybody's. If they leave it in there, it's just in there. I'm not, nope. Not willing to deal with whatever lunacy might result from that. I remember I almost got in a fight in a truck stop one day because I went in to do my laundry and there was one laundry machine open, except there was a bottle of detergent. But it was like an empty bottle of detergent. And apparently that was supposed to be my signal, not that somebody was coming back with their clothes. And then they got all mad at me and I was just like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. Like, all I know is I walked in here and there was like an empty bottle of soap. And I used the machine like I'm supposed to. Like, I don't know. What do you want me to do? They acted like they're going to fight me over it because I basically just told them to fuck off. I was like, I don't know what to tell you, brother. You're a dummy. Hey, I can't be blamed for them being more. And again, see, this is a violation. Too strongly identified with the realm. See, this is what I mean by just now breaking into the bottom rung of spiritual mastery, right, or ascended mastery. Yeah. You see how quickly it happens? Yeah. Just the briefest flash of whatever that is, you know. And then, of course, whatever's still in there to heal also is like, hey, now we've got a chance to come out, right? What I found is when it flares up, then I choose not to engage it, and it's still, now I can feel the healing. Like I feel those energies are continuing to rise up. But I'm not identified with them. See, I'm not continuing on. I'm not reliving it, right? Which is, in some way, it is like to re-traumatize oneself, right? I'm just like, no, man, let that go. And so in letting that go, whatever energetically is in there, not tied to that event, but on that same energetic level, now it can release. See, this is healing, folks. And this idea of, you know, why is it always this idea of, well, you know, there's this type of healer and that type of healer? Well, isn't it about healing oneself, right? You know, forget about healing other people. Now, maybe that could be a thing. I don't know. Jason means healer, by the way. But either way, it's like, yo, heal me, you know. Isn't that what's relevant? Heal me, you know. Heal me. But yeah, the TA has way better. I'm just not a big fan of Love's. And it's funny because that's where the normie NPCs rush in and, oh, they love Love's. Love's is the best. It's really not. And the way this lot is designed, let me calm down. The way this lot is designed, everybody parked in the direction I'm pointing, they're blocked in. Because where I'm at, where the heavy wrecker dropped me on the lot, I'm not in a parking space. And then I'm not blocking these people, but you know, all these bozos came in over the nighttime and they're stacked like 3 more layers deep. So whoever's parked over there in parking spaces, they can't get out, right? And a lot of the Loves are laid out that way. And unless the staff comes out here all night long and makes these people, now some of them do, but unless the staff comes out here all night long and tells them to move, some of them will even call the cops. The cops will come make them move, but Unless that happens, people are just blocked in. Now, yeah, that happens at all truck stops, but it's the way that the lots are laid out. It happens way more at Love's for whatever reason. Bad design, or they don't care, possibly. Oh, wait a minute. Am I still running my yap? I forgot to make the rest of the eggs. It's not enough to just boil the water, sir. You're going to have to do the other things, too. Oh, really? Multitasking, not my strong suit. But yeah, that shows you the strength of anger, or this, just the strength of, whatever that is, resentment. Oh, well, it shouldn't be this way. Well, yeah, but it is, motherfucker. Yeah, motherfuckers shouldn't. I shouldn't have to worry about motherfuckers trying to fight me at the truck stop laundry room. But sometimes that's a reality. And not that I'm worried. I can handle myself. But I think, as I remember, though, I think the guy actually kind of got in my space and was pushing me a little bit, which is wait a minute, am I about to go hands on with this bozo? It's what the fuck? I mean, I'm probably not the person to back into a corner in a confined space. I'm not a fighter. I don't know what I'm capable of. I'm pretty sure we're starting out with a headbutt, though. I'm pretty sure we're going right to the headbutt, but only if they make me, right? Only if they make me fight them. But it's funny how many times people have gotten right to that point with me, and then they don't want. It's not that I'm a badass. It's they see that once they see that I'm not going to fight them, but I'm also not going to just let them have their way. I don't know, man. It's it chills their shit out somehow. It's hard to explain, but it's that Benton. It's that Benton in me, probably. But yeah, that was. Oh yeah. See, now the stretching, I got to see. I think I'm on the verge of actually bringing in some new stuff, and we can't have that, so bear with me while we do a little yoga here, stretch this out. I don't know. I think we're still okay. I think we're still in the realm of healing. Oh yeah. It really comes down to range of motion, because when I really fuck up, then I start losing range of motion. And it's hey man, you've gone to all this trouble to regain some of this range of motion. What are you doing? Backsliding? Yeah, see, that's a little problematic right there. That's yeah. Yeah. You done fucked up there, Bubba. Yeah. A little too strongly, a little too attached to the strong delusion, sir. Out here claiming spiritual mastery. Well, not fully, not 100%. But yeah, to be able to work this out. Man. Brutal. Oh yeah, there we go. Oh. I need my pull-up bar. Oh, yeah. Yep, that was a mistake. It's temporarily fell into error. Probably going to have to confess, repent, seek forgiveness, and receive forgiveness for that one. But I think in the short term, as long as I stop talking about violence, it'll probably be okay. At least enough to get through the end of the stream. I think we'll probably be all right. Did enough tissue work there. And how is a person supposed to go slave away for corporations and still have time to, work on themselves, man, to get themselves right, And look at how quickly it happens. Just one entertaining the wrong type of thought in the wrong type of way, even for the briefest of moments, It's kind of funny. For what? I don't get anything out of that. I didn't. What's the benefit to me? Nothing. Oh, I haven't taken my, I don't believe I've taken my nascent iodine, not that y'all can see this, my nascent iodine, or nascent, in my vitamin D3 yet. So better do that. And of course, if I manage to choose to call Amazon today, maybe I can talk them into not returning my package, because I think today is when they'll start sending my stuff back from the Amazon locker. So maybe I'll try to call them later. Not looking forward to that, of course. But we'll see. Okay, I feel it's changing now in my tissues. Yeah, we're back to the healing. I feel it. Wait a minute. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's supposed to be 12,000 IUs. I don't know if it's quite that potent, but experts will tell you that's too much, but it's not. Or this is like half strength. Maybe it's only 6,000. Vitamin D3. All right, that's already boiling. Turn that off. We're behind schedule. Behind schedule, people. Oh, and now this cup is, this is what I need here. This cup, man. You've lost your stand for your phone there, Bubba. Yep. Show enough. Well, I'm really fucking up. The egg cup's full. What are you doing, buddy? I don't know. I guess we're into non-tent now, so we're just hanging out. Can't see shit, Captain. Yeah, that's true. Oh shit, we already had that. Okay. Eggs. Crack them. Crack them eggs. Talked to some local black Virginians this morning. I can't understand a damn word they said, but that's all right. Part of the fun, right? Part of the fun. Part of the fun. Come on, buddy. Working like a nigger for my room and board. What? A hard R out of nowhere? It's like, yeah, I guess so. The N-word N-word. So that's what this realm does. Anybody that uncovers that perfected path that lies within, this realm has no choice but to treat them like a N-word. And I don't mean black person. And I don't mean black person. These yolks, I'm sorry, these whites don't want to separate. What is Monday, right? Yeah, Monday. Yep. Sign your name to the bottom of the government. Man. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, where's my lighter? There it is. Uh-oh. Okay, we're back. Yeah, we're back on the range of motion. Definitely stirred something up. It's probably good. Probably good overall, whatever I stirred up just now. Get shed of it, as my people would say. Where's the flashlight? Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's chilly in here, man. It's daylight, also. There we go. That'll work. That'll wake. Where'd my spoon go? Where's my spoon? Where's my spoon? There it is. Stir it up, sir. Stir it up. If I end up sleeping here again tonight, I might have to. One trick for sleeping when it's cold is, even though it's not the best to eat right before bedtime, eat some carbs before bed. That helps. And then have a hot drink in the morning, of course, that helps. I learned some of these little tricks living outdoors for 2 winters. Southern winters, but winters nonetheless. Also, a lot of ginger. A lot of ginger. Yeah, I don't have any ginger powder right now. I don't think. No, I know I don't. Yeah. Dry socks is another big thing. I probably need to go and my feet have probably sweated enough by now. I probably need to swap out my socks. Most of the time, if you're ever around somebody in the winter and they're like, man, I'm freezing, it's usually their feet are wet from sweat, typically. Okay, put on some dry socks. It usually goes right away. And I had wool socks from the winter, but when I moved out of the truck on my last truck driving job, I left them behind because it was like, you know, it's like how much stuff am I going to pile into this tiny little car, you know? Something's got to give. I left behind some, of course, you know, it was warm, so I left behind some long underwear, some wool socks, a couple of hoodies. It's like, yeah, it'd be nice to have that right about now, sure, but I've got enough money to just buy that. But if I can ever manage to get to an Amazon locker. So I'm not really, never really a fan of what they sell at Walmart for wool socks. And then it's pretty tough. It can be pretty tough to even find thermal underwear at Walmart. Because, you know, their app said that they had it, but either this lady couldn't find it, which she seemed pretty on the ball, and I'm a tipper, so, you know, I'm sure she tried, but probably people stole them, because, you know, then the computer thinks it's there, but it's not, because people have stolen them. Or there might be like a display somewhere. Might be all on some end cap somewhere. I don't know. So I wear my diabetes socks, so then put the wool ones over that. That's what I call them, compression socks, diabetes socks. All right. I'm getting comments, maybe? Nope. Well, that's all right. It's all right. Okay. My nose is stopping up a little bit. It's probably the lack of ventilation, but usually I got almost always my nasal passages are almost always clear. Might just need to blow your nose, partner. Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Getting the egg whites out of my drink here. Of course, the yolks emulsify, not the whites. Well, I'm sure there's more in there, but that'll do. See, I'm supposed to have my new ginger extract, my new bottle of ginger extract. I'm almost out. My ginger. If anybody remembers that there was a movie with Paul Giamatti where he's from the coldest part of Canada in the movie. And him and his buddy go down to New York City and just basically live in a truck on the street selling Christmas trees, you know, at a high profit. And Vice, back when Vice used to be interesting, they did an article where they found some of these people that do this, because apparently it's a thing. And they basically asked them, like, why can't the New Yorkers do this? And they're pretty much like, yeah, it's just too cold for them to live on the street like that. So they said, okay, what's the difference? It's like, well, clearly we're used to a colder climate, but then the only really tips they could get out of them was dry socks and ginger in all forms. So I was like, all right, I learned from that. Change your socks frequently, and ginger in all forms. All right. So be it. So yeah, let's change the socks, which may not be. They're in the cabinet. They're right behind. They're behind you guys. You're in the way of the socks. So I guess we'll just be cold. I think I might have a pair from yesterday that aren't really dirty and they're dry. So yeah, maybe that'll work. Since I've washed some of my older socks, I've got like 3 different groups of socks that I'm trying not to commingle with each other. God. Trying not to show my feet on stream. Too many weirdos out there. No, I don't even care about that. But they're actually clean for once, but we got the fungus. Going on. This one's still got open fucking wounds because I dug into it. I had to if you've ever had an ingrown big toe, man, that's one of the worst things ever. Ingrown toenails. So I learned that in my 20s, and whatever I got to do to avoid that. That was fucking horrible. Ingrown toenail. Yeah. Any and all measures. Back then I figured out, I dug it out enough, and then I was able to, like, put a little piece of like paper towel or something in there between the skin and the toenail long enough for it to grow out. Yep. That fight fucking hurt though. I remember that. That's when I was fat. That's back when I was fat. I know people have trouble believing that. 48, size 40 pants. But yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else in the notes here? I think I covered all of it. Yeah, I guess I did. Maybe we'll take a look at some news headlines. See how long I can stand that. Probably not very long. Turn the hotspot on here. Excuse me, pardon me, excuse me. Yeah, let's amuse ourselves with the news. No internet. Bullshit. I don't believe you. We're on the internet right now. Yeah, that's one thing. The T-Mobile, the hotspot always works. Sometimes on Verizon, it just doesn't want to work. Let's try it again. I don't want to connect. Yeah, they're leaving over the news. I don't blame you. No internet. No, not connected. Trump gets bad news from Social Security Commissioner. That's my Social Security disability lawyer guy.
Okay, let's get this party started. What do you need to know? This particular
I guess he found a soundboard.
is about Trump receiving news from the president of the Social Security Administration, known as Frank Bisignano. He's the commissioner, also the CEO of the IRS, of some potentially bad news. And I want to go through this real quick. Now, I just want to let you know that I don't think it's uncommon news. I think this is something that tends to happen in the Wall Street big money crowd. I don't think it's absolutely ridiculously shocking, but some people are acting like it is absolutely ridiculously shocking, so I thought I'd cover it real quick. Here is an article from Eric Wagner. Basically, the title of the article is "Music Not Draws Scrutiny as His Former Company Falters." Just months after the Social Security Commissioner and Internal Revenue Service CEO divested nearly $600 million in Fiserv investments, the business stock value tanked more than 40% on the news that Bisignano had issued overly rosy earnings guidance. So just to be clear, Frank Bisignano, before joining the Social Security Administration, had to divest himself of essentially that stock. And as part of it, that, because they can't have, Fiserv, the connection, it would look like there was something going on if he kept the stock. So he had to get rid of it. And there's a special statute that allows him to do that without taking a tax hit. And that means that basically he got to sell it and transition the funds when they were super high, which made him super wealthy.
Yeah, are you hearing this? The guy who runs Social Security and the IRS, apparently, Bisignano, they're talking about the circumstances under which he divested himself from the stock of some bank that he used to be, I guess, CEO of. This is kind of what I mean. It's like people get mad about their neighbor having food stamps, but, don't give a fuck about this, whatever this is. So let me back it up a little bit.
Falters. Just months after the Social Security Commissioner and Internal Revenue Service CEO divested nearly $600 million in Fiserv investments, the business stock value tanked.
$600 million in investments. So he basically, what happened is he timed it out to where he divested himself of the stock at the top, and then it tanked right after he divested himself, which is probably supposed to be illegal. But anyway, I guess we're going to have to 1x this. I'm actually having trouble keeping up with what he's saying at 1.5, so let's go 1x.
Like it is absolutely ridiculously shocking, so I thought I'd cover it real quick. Here is an article from Eric Wagner. Basically, title of the article is "Bisignano Draws Scrutiny as His Former Company Falters." Just months after the Social Security Commissioner and Internal Revenue Service CEO divested nearly $600 million in Fiserv investments, the business stock value tanked more than 40% on the news that Bisignano had issued overly rosy earnings guidance. So just to be clear...
So it sounds like he knew he was going to divest himself from the stock, so he gave an overly rosy picture of the potential earnings driving the stock up, and then it turned out that they didn't meet earnings, is what it sounds like. And I think it's Fifth Third Bank, I believe, is where he used to be. I think, I'm not sure.
Bisignano, before joining the Social Security Administration, had to divest himself of essentially that stock. And as part of it, that because they can't have Fiserv, the connection, it would look like there was something going on if he kept the stock.
It sounds like he's saying Pfizer, but he's saying 5/3, I think, which is a bank.
So he had to get rid of it. And there's a special statute that allows him to do that without taking a tax hit. And that means that basically he got to sell it and transition the funds when they were super high.
Yeah, without paying taxes.
Super wealthy.
Without paying taxes.
Social Security Commissioner Frank Bisignano,
which is kind of the same thing as your neighbor getting food stamps, because he should have had to pay the money, but they let him not pay the money, which means he gets the money for free. Free money. How's that any different than food stamps?
This week for his work in the private sector as the stock price of his former company Fiserv tanked upon the rescission of long-term growth projections that executives say were too optimistic. Now, to be fair, Frank Bisignano wasn't the only one to draw up the projections of how much that company was likely to make in the future. And to be fair, at the end of the day, this is not uncommon for a company to say, hey, we're going to do this well, and some new CEO comes in and has to reevaluate things, and they go, whoa, hold your horses.
Yeah, because it's all a scam.
To do that well.
Anyway, I'm not going to get upset.
True Crime, thank you for the 5 Social Security gift memberships. We got Janet Petit, Diana Hazelton, Ahart, Light of the Moon, and also Life is Too Short. Excellent. And Shelley, thank you for joining the appreciation as well. Let's get right into it. Let's go through this a little bit. So you know which Fiserv is. They do a lot of the banking transactions that you use with your phone, a lot of Clover stuff. So basically, he was the CEO of that company. Okay, shares in Fiserv, a financial technology company that processes credit and debit card payments on behalf of businesses and financial institutions, fell more than 40%, or $30 billion in market value on Wednesday.
Good God.
CEO Mike Lyons, that's the new CEO that replaced Frank Bisignano.
So how much money did this guy steal? If his $600 million would have been $400 million, he stole $200 million, right? But it doesn't get viewed as he stole $200 million that he didn't have to pay taxes on the 600 or the 200. Stole the money. It's right, Joe. People don't realize, they don't know anything about corporate welfare because it's complicated. Your neighbor getting food stamps is not complicated. It's a certain amount of money shows up on a card and they go to Walmart. Meanwhile, what would happen to Walmart without EBT? I'm pretty sure it would go out of fucking business, folks. Now, it wouldn't go out of business overnight. They have enough cash reserves to keep going, right? Now, if what I think is going to happen, and Amazon and Walmart are either going to merge, or eventually I could see Amazon figuring out some kind of way to effectively just buy Walmart for cash. I mean, that's probably not possible in the short run, but, eventually probably, or just a straight up merger, which I don't think, that doesn't seem like Bezos' style. He seems like if he could buy Walmart eventually, that's probably what he would do, I'm assuming, but how long could Walmart survive if there's just no more EBT? I don't think they would make it that long. I really don't. Their workers depend on it, number one. Number two, a lot of what they sell, what percentage of all EBT ends up getting spent at Walmart? It's got to be a lot. It's got to be.
Issued by
EBT is corporate welfare on some level.
Frank Bisignano, who was our new Social Security Commissioner. The stock price fell another 7.1% Thursday. So, they lost tens of billions of dollars as a result of this new forecast projection. According to the trade publication Payments Dive, Lyons said that Bisignano's earnings targets would have been objectively difficult to achieve, even with the right investment and strong execution. So, just to be clear...
Well, and what's hilarious is that the reason why he has to divest himself of that stock in order to go work for the government is presumably to prevent a conflict of interest, but which actually hilariously, it created a conflict of interest because now it became in his best interest as soon as he realized that Trump had a pretty good chance of winning and that now he's going to go into the government. And now that he understands the potential timing of when is he going to sell his stock, now that creates a conflict of interest whereby he's going to be incentivized to do everything he can to keep the stock high, which he's already trying to do anyway.
The CEO that's now in is throwing the old CEO under the bus.
Well, of course he is.
It's just the likely achievement of Fiserv would not have achieved that much income. They didn't have enough customers. They didn't grow enough new customers. It just was objectively difficult.
Well, but by the way, why didn't the new CEO, he had to have known this was going to happen on some level, right? So I don't know. Some of this is much ado about nothing. This is just business as usual.
Achieve that. But instead, Fiserv had in recent years deferred needed investments and cut costs in pursuit of shoring up short-term...
See, somebody thinks he's saying Pfizer. Because, see, I'm looking at the comments. Yay, Pfizer is nasty. He's saying 5/3, or it's actually, if you see their banks, it's fifth third. But that's really awkward to say. Like the fifth third, but it's like there's not 5/3. What are we talking about? I don't even, and I Googled it one time because finally I was like, what does that even mean? And it's so uninteresting, I don't even remember. But there's people in the comments who think he's saying Pfizer. He's not saying Pfizer.
Margins. So in other words, Fiserv is saying,
Fiserv.
Frank Bisignano,
I think, unless I'm just tripping.
Cut too much in cost in pursuit of
maybe I'm tripping.
Basically getting the proper investments rolled up to make sure it was good for
investments. Exactly. So, it's a bank.
It's a bit of
not
a hit
Pfizer.
Against Frank Bisignano. Keep that in mind.
August 9th birthday.
Fiserv's falling stock price drew renewed scrutiny on Bisignano,
for this guy,
who had recently been named Chief Executive Officer of the Internal Revenue Service, in addition to his duties at SSA, and as part of his transition to government work, had to offload hundreds of millions in shares in the financial company.
Yeah,
between May
not Pfizer, 5/3.
530 million in Fiserv shares. Bloomberg reported if held until today, those shares would be worth, instead of 530 million.
Fiserv. My bad. I'm way off.
Making
Fiserv, Fiserv, Fiserv. I don't even know what that is. Maybe they own that Fifth Third Bank. What is this? See, I know more than your average person, and I've never even heard of this shit. What is this? What is Fiserv? Probably a hedge fund or some bullshit. Fiserv. Oh, provider of financial services technology to banks. So I'm assuming that's why they hired him at SSI, was to help the Social Security Administration, actually, SSA, to help modernize the computer systems, I'm guessing. That makes sense. Fiserv is an American multinational financial technology company headquartered in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The company processes debit and credit card transactions, loyalty programs, loans, electronic bill pay, wires and ACH transfers, check deposits, ATM transactions on behalf of banking institutions. The company also produces debit and credit cards and point-of-sale terminals. Okay, that makes sense. What's the revenue? $20.5 billion. Operating income, $5.88 billion. Net income, $3.13 billion. Total assets, $77.2 billion. Total equity, $27.1 billion. What's the market cap? I guess I'd have to look that up. Right. Hang on. Fiserv market cap. Probably around that $77 billion, I'm guessing. Although apparently it's fallen recently. 36. Yeah, see. It probably was closer to 70. Now it's, 36 billion. Well, see, it had this huge drop, and it looks like it's coming back now. Of course, that's just the one day, so let's go to 6 months. Yeah, off a fucking cliff. I'm looking at the chart, off a damn cliff. Yeah. Financial auditor. I don't know. That's a good question.
Or 300 million in avoided losses. So just to kind of like catch you guys up on what they think is going on, they think Frank Zignano basically, pushed the projections way too far beyond their actual capacity to achieve those earnings with Fiserv, which made the stock price soar and stay high. And this isn't really soar, but it stayed high. And as a result of that, they're saying, hey, Frank might have, the new commissioner of the SSA, committed some, I wouldn't say fraud, but like some influence to go ahead and basically try and manipulate a stock price so that he could, go and sell his stock and make a good, tidy profit, if you will. Okay. On top of that, when a government official divests from their private sector assets, they receive a certificate of divestiture, which allows them to offset some of the capital gains tax burden and reinvest those proceeds into government securities and other diversified investments. So what he was required to do before joining the SSA, he had to sell off a lot of that stock and invest it into other stuff that would not, just to be clear, be like,
Anyway, let's go see what's going on with the headlines. And the Sam Hyde show, I don't really watch it too much, but he did his most recent episode of the Sam Hyde show is about cleansing and detoxing and, parasite cleansing and all of this. And even the clickbait or the way to get people to watch it was talking about urine therapy. So I don't know. I've only watched a part of it. Let's see. What do we got here? CBS cuts Trump's corruption tantrum from 60 Minutes edit. Well, whatever that means. President labels Seth Meyers' rhetoric illegal. New York City mayoral race tightens. Not interested in that. Flight hell worsens. Staff shortages surge. Ground stop Newark. Anxiety over food stamps leads to hard choices. Trump builds his palace as Americans going hungry. Well, I mean, come on. Some of these people could probably stand to lose a few pounds, as I'm not the first one to notice that. FBI ousts leader as Patel fumes over attention to jet use. Demands escalate for 2020 election investigations. Well, that's the new world order of elections now. Control of Tesla at stake and vote on Musk's pay plan. New York City early voting ends with 735,000 ballots cast as younger voters surge. Views of capitalism slip, but socialism still unpopular. Zoran takes in Knicks from the rafters after Cuomo sat courtside. Well, yeah, whatever. Yeah, most of this is just nothing burgers. Logging off newest status symbol. Drones buzz military base storing U.S. nuclear weapons. Oh, well, there was a story where some people snuck into a nuclear weapons facility. I think multiple times. Who even knows? Pentagon preps war in Nigeria, question mark. Yeah, this is just a bunch of nothing. Amazonification of Whole Foods finally here, bring on Doritos. Except it won't let me read the article, of course, because it's behind a paywall. Yeah, it's not even anything going on in the news. Let's go over to Citizen Free Press. We'll see what they're on about. Probably a bunch of RFK, nothing burgers. Citizen Free Press. I guess I haven't been there since I cleared my history. Usually it's in my history. Yeah, I don't read. If it's got to do with Steve Bannon, I don't even bother to pay attention to it. And then so many of these links are to Twitter. It's like, I'm not going to Twitter. It's just nuts. Or X. Popular Mexican mayor gunned down after declaring war on cartels. Well, that's standard for Mexico. That's just what happens. Video from scene of public assassination. Yes, it's just a bunch of nonsense. Don't care. Nicki Minaj praises Trump for standing up for Christians. What's up, Miss Carrie? Good to see you. How are you doing? I saw one of your comments that for some reason I don't seem to get the comments on the videos. But then I open my studio and it's like sometimes there's comments there and it's weird. It's like almost every time I see a comment, it's like 2 weeks ago. I don't know what's going on, but I think I've got your email somewhere. I'm trying to figure out. I need to email you actually. But seemed like that was good news that you had, so I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, this news is just pointless. Pervert teacher sentenced to 187 years in prison. New college football computer rankings. Nicki Minaj is not a citizen, apparently. All right. Ah, yeah, here we go. LA celebrates in Echo Park. Police on horseback use tear gas. Yeah. Yeah, last year when the Dodgers won the World Series, I went out to collect cans and bottles at 3 a.m. and they had burned down one of them buses, that wiggles in the middle. I forget what they call those. Yeah, they burned one of them down. Right there, Sunset and Echo Park, actually. Sunset and Echo Park. So for some reason, that ends up being ground central for a lot of the rioting and partying, for whatever reason. 5'10" pitcher is World Series MVP. I don't really follow baseball, but is that? Oh, Yamamoto. 2 2/3 inning of scoreless relief. There's your 3-2-2. Oh yeah, moved into your apartment. Yeah, I had no idea that you were not. I'm assuming you weren't on the streets, I'm guessing. Yeah, Kaylee and her and her children moved into their own apartment. Well, that's a blessing, I would assume. Hopefully it's hopefully you can continue to fund it, right? So I spoke a little bit about on a recent stream about, you know, receiving donations from Miss Carrie down there, and although I'm assuming that's not the reason why you weren't able to move into an apartment before then. You know, there's lots of obstacles to being able to move into an apartment. And in fact, it's possible to have the money and still not be able to move in some cases. But yeah, glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Oh, okay. It's couch surfing, yeah. Oh, you got a great job? Awesome. One thing I will say for the ladies, they do seem to be more, for whatever reason, they seem to be able to get better jobs in a lot of cases than the fellas. So that's a good thing. There's this after prison show guy, Joe Guerrero. I know he used to make a big living on his channel, but now he doesn't make that much money in content creation, and his wife's got a big salary. Apparently she keeps getting promoted and she makes a big salary. But then, you know, like a lot of couples, apparently they have separate finances, so Joe's always broke, and then, you know, she's got the money. But I guess they have a son who's a couple of years old by now. It's kind of interesting just sort of seeing what people are up to in that way. Kind of how people are living life, right? Well, I guess I don't have too much more. I'm trying to stick around for Carrie showing up, but I don't know that I have too much more. And this is like the coldest part of the day, so I'm probably going to go walk around and warm up. Because I'm in a broke down truck, Carrie. I've been here since, I guess last night was the second night, and with all my stuff in the truck and living in the truck, and I was able to, Walmart delivered my food to me yesterday. You know, the company would put me in a hotel, but I'm in the middle of nowhere, and there's no hotels anywhere near the truck stop, so it's just kind of easier in a way to be in the truck. And then supposedly some point today somebody's gonna tow a tractor from Chicago to Virginia, and then tow the broken tractor back to Chicago, the one I'm in, and then I'm going to hook up to the trailer with the new tractor and go make these deliveries. I can pretty much just, he's going to show up tonight about my bedtime, or you know, maybe I'll go to sleep. I went to bed, man, at like 6:30 yesterday. Maybe I'll go to sleep at 6 p.m. and maybe I'll get 6 hours. Shows up at midnight and wakes me up. Maybe that's the move. Oh, that's truck driving, Carrie. That's what. And another, you know, add that to the millions of reasons why, you know, the 20,000 reasons why your average normal person couldn't. And I make $7,200 a month right now, which just sounds crazy, but I mean that's only if I work literally every day. But so let's just say if I work 7 days out of the week, then I get paid $1,800. So, and they take $100 for the per diem. So, yeah, I mean my salary is $72. It's not a salary, but I typically just live in the truck and don't really take home time. So it's effectively, while I'm working, I'm making $7,200 a month. But part of that is, this is just part of the job. And in fact, in the past, I would have sat here for who knows how long, and they wouldn't have paid me. The most I would have got paid in the past would have been $100 a day. Maybe $150, but then I know with Balkan, I was down for a full 7 days, and they only paid me for 4 days for whatever reason. And it's just like, okay, well, I mean, that's just what, then at that point, it just becomes, how ugly am I going to get with them, It's, in my world, it's just easier to just fucking eat the difference. But at least I'm on a day rate now. So, and again, here's another thing about trucking: the pay is not guaranteed. I mean, meaning, any of these companies could just go out of business at any time. So I won't know until I get my paycheck. But assuming that I get my $1,700 on Friday, I'm hypothetically making $257 to sit here in a cold truck. Which actually, as long as the sun comes out, it's going to warm up in here pretty soon. And this is another thing about when I was homeless for all those years, and they're like, oh, what about getting cold at night? I said, actually, as long as you have the proper sleeping gear, it's not cold. I'm not cold when I'm sleeping. I'm cold when I got to get out to piss, right? There's no, sleeping's fine as long as you have the proper sleep. So I'm completely warm when I'm sleeping. It's the waking up or having to go to the bathroom part. And then, typically, coldest part of the morning is usually 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. depending on time zone and daylight savings time or whatever, but it's usually right about 6 a.m. typically is the coldest part of the morning. So, I'm awake by like 3 a.m. I slept in till like 4:30 this morning. But yeah, it's not that bad. And if, like I say, it's to somebody who lives in a house, and I don't mean you, I mean the people at the trucking company, they can never really understand that. Yeah, the people who, stay out on the road 2 weeks and then they go for home time, they live in a house even though they are on the road most of the time. Like, I live in the truck on the road. Like, I want to be where my stuff is. I don't want to be in a hotel because my stuff ain't there. And meanwhile, I might live in a motel for a whole month and take one shower, right? I mean, yeah, I know, ooh, gross, and I'll never turn the TV on. So it's like, what's the fucking difference? I might as well be in the truck. Now, most of the time I don't have to be cold in the truck because most of the time I can run the engine and run the heater, and this one doesn't, for whatever reason, just doesn't have a bunk heater, or if it does, I can't get it to work. So. And so to call an Uber and to move all my bullshit out of this truck and to take it to a motel only to bring it all back here to move into a different, like, it just doesn't even make sense, right? It's like, I'll just stay here. And, as a old school type of dude, there is sort of a captain of the ship mentality of like, I am kind of responsible for this thing as far as a vessel or a conveyance or whatever, it's like and if they actually pay me, which they probably will, like, I probably should just stay with the fucking ship, right? I mean, that's sort of a man thing, right? It's like, I probably should just stay here because hypothetically, hypothetically, they could just tow this bitch out of here. So at least it's probably not going to happen, but if I'm here, at least I'm like, yo, man, they're coming to get the thing. And then if I'm in a motel, it's like, what am I going to do? Uber back here to check on it it's just not practical. The motel's like 13 miles away. We're in the middle of nowhere, Virginia. Small town mentalities. It was a miracle that the Walmart app would dispatch somebody to go shop for me and bring me my groceries. So, that's good enough for me, right? I'll just, it's cold's not a big deal, really. If I had the right kind of socks, this wouldn't be a big deal at all. I don't have my proper winter socks yet because I left them behind in the truck when I quit the last truck driving job because it just didn't make any sense to keep up with socks for 6 months. When I could just buy, that's the utility of money, when I could just buy more socks. But yeah, that's truck driving, Carrie. That's just pretty standard, actually, for truck driving. But like I explained, if I was the type who was like, fuck you, I'm going to the truck stop, I'm going to the motel, I'd be in a motel. And then if this was the type of truck stop to have the truck towed, then the fucking truck would be towed and now the company would be pissed. See what I'm saying? It's like, not that I necessarily care that the company's pissed, but it's just better for everybody, and myself included, to stay here. And part of this is I'm on this diet. I prepare all my own meals. You know, I really, I have no desire to just, you know, because I know myself, by the time I get to the hotel and I want to start making my egg drink or whatever, I'll be missing something. There'll be something critical that I was like, oh yeah, oh yeah, I left the egg separator or whatever in the truck. Like, that's just who I am as a person, you know. Or, well, scratch that. That's who Benton is as a personality. Like, that's just what happens, right? There's almost a 100% chance of me getting to the motel and I will have left something critical behind. That's just how that goes. So, yeah. Oh, I'll be cold for a few hours. You know, big deal. You know what I mean? I'd rather just be cold for a few hours. And I can make tea. I got my stove here. You know, I can, if I need to, I can make some tea. That's some lovely peppermint tea. Actually, it's not lovely, but it's good enough. So yeah, I'm all good. But I'm going to get out of here and go walk around. And that's another thing. All I got to do is walk a couple of laps, brisk pace. I'll get back here and I'll be completely warmed up. So I'm out. Thanks for watching. Bye.